the second consecutive year at the Brickyard, NASCAR and IndyCar had their doubleheader on the road course of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We started the day off with Xfinity qualifying, then got into the IndyCar race, and then we wrapped it up with Xfinity Series racing. We got some stuff to talk about here, so let's not waste any time and jump right into it. We start off with IndyCar that had a massive shakeup in the championship standings. We start off with Pato O'Ward and Will Power. They started on the front row. There was a lot of drivers jostling for position mid-pack around the first early corners in the first few laps of the race. But Alex Palou, he had a very interesting day. On lap 2, it was reported that he had no power at all, which was weird at first because he had no power, yet he was still keeping up with the field. It wasn't like he automatically was slower than everyone else and pulled off track. He was still keeping up pace, was still running strong with the other contenders. So it was weird for him to say that he had no power. They would then have to transition to a Mat 3 system, which basically means that they'd have better mileage on their car, but they have less speed, which is critical, especially on the two straightaways, one coming off of turn 5 and one on the start finish line. It had drivers like Scott Dixon, Takuma Sato, James Hinchcliffe, and Jimmy Johnson on lap 10, 11 trying to perform an undercut to get an advantage on their competition, especially trying to get some clean air on the Firestone Reds to put on some very fast lap times, like I said, to get an advantage on their competitors and try and move up positions based off of pit strategy and not trying to use up their car and battle for position. Team Penske, they had a weird day. Will Power, he had a very strong car. He was a contender all race long, but his other two teammates, Joseph Newgarden and Scott McLaughlin, they had a very up and down day, let's just say the least. McLaughlin got up in the air in turns 5 and 6 on the inside Blue Turtle. I guess you could say that. He got up in the air at the start. Then Joseph Newgarden got shuffled mid-pack after that whole exchange of drivers jostling for position mid-pack. And then he had a moment off of turn 12 when Max Chilton basically sent him off the racetrack. On lap 13, the next batch of drivers come in like Rossi, Connor Daly, Rinus VeeKay, Ericsson Bordeas, and Castro Neves. They pit on lap 13. Now Pato O'Ward, he pits and comes out just in front of Will Power. Now O'Ward is on the primaries while Power is on the reds. So because of that, Will Power, obviously when you're on reds, softer tires, better grip, you can go faster than a driver on primaries. On turn 11, on lap 18, Power on the inside of O'Ward passes him with ease and what would be the race lead after pit stop cycled through. So when pit stops completed around lap 22, he had now a 4.3 second gap ahead of Pato O'Ward. That was until Colton Herta, who had a very eventful day last weekend at Nashville. He also had a pretty strong car, top 3 car in this race today. He was challenging Pato O'Ward. Textbook move entering turn number 1, getting the draft off of O'Ward, slingshotting to the inside, making the pass for second place. Fast forward to lap 35, Scott Dixon is one of the first to pit on lap 10. He comes in again to start the next round of pit stops for Reds. Then on 3 laps to go on lap 38, Will Power gives up the lead so that he can pit for Reds. But what was interesting about this is that even on lap 38, right before he came onto pit road, he opened up to about a 6-second gap, which is surprising considering the fact that he's on Reds and lost virtually no time compared to some of the other drivers that were on Reds and started out strong but then fell back later into the run. Power virtually lost 0 speed. In fact, he might have gained speed throughout the whole exchange between O'Ward and Colton Herta battling hard for second. But even after pit stops, Dixon, who began the second round of pit stop cycles, wasn't able to do anything with the undercut, really. He was stuck in mid-pack 17th place, while Pato O'Ward, who was I think 3rd at the time in the championship standings, he was up there in 5th place. So now Dixon fell back to 3rd during that whole exchange, while Will Power, he's up there obliterating the field with a now 9-second gap ahead of Herta. So he's got a 9-second gap. It's all easy from here on out. Nope. Enter Colton Herta's teammate, James Hinchcliffe. He was the last driver on the lead lap, and he was really aggravating Will Power because no matter how hard Power tried, he could not get around James Hinchcliffe. He was not blocking in the sense that it was blatantly obvious, but he just was really hard. He was really difficult for Power to get a run underneath and make a pass on Hinchcliffe. And of course, Power trying to use up Hinchcliffe, he's using up his stuff. That allows Colton Herta to close the gap on Power. So the lead goes from about 9 seconds to around 5.4 seconds with 1 round of pit stops to go. And now we're starting to think, or at least I'm starting to think, okay, maybe Colton Herta might be in range to perform an undercut, if possible. And not only does Will Power have to deal with Colton Herta, but he's got to deal with Grosjean and Pato O'Ward. They're in 3rd and 4th. They're also closing in. But on top of that, unlike Power, they have an extra set of sticker tires, of sticker reds, for the final round of pit stops that they can use to their advantage. So final pit stops begin on lap 60. 2 laps later, Palou, Hinchcliffe, O'Ward, and more come on to pit road for their final pit stop. Then Hinchcliffe leaves out ahead of Will Power, stalls there for about a quick second, but keeps it going. That holds up Power even more. So now Power has got about a 3-second gap compared to a 9-second gap before pit stops on Colton Herta. Now we throw Romain Grosjean in the mix because now Grosjean is starting to put pressure on Herta for 2nd place. The only thing Herta had to his advantage was the fact that, unlike Grosjean, Herta still had push to pass. Grosjean already used up his seconds earlier in the race. So even though Grosjean had fresher tires than Herta, he didn't have push to pass to his advantage. And then Alex Palou, we talked about the engine issues or the power issues he had earlier in the race, finally caught up to him. On lap 68, the gap between 1st and 2nd place was 2.2 seconds. And then coming to the long straightaway, coming off of turns 5 and 6, Palou, engine expires, smoke comes out of his number 10 NTT data car, pulls it off to the side, and brings out what would be the first caution of the day. With 15 laps to go, Will Power takes off early to not allow Colton Herta to get a toe off of Power on that long front straightaway. But Grosjean did. Grosjean was right behind Colton Herta. Herta tried to pull a defensive move by protecting the inside lane. Grosjean goes high, locks up the brakes just a little bit, but still was able to pass Herta for 2nd place. But then with 9 laps to go, you know the phrase cautions breed cautions? Well, with 9 laps to go, another caution came out. Rinus VeeKay just got run over by Scott McLaughlin in turn 8, and VeeKay stopped in the middle of the track, and what will be the final caution of the day. And on the restart, Power once again gets off early to not allow Grosjean to get a draft off of him. It worked. Power was able to hold on the lead and will go on to score his 5th win at the Indy road course race, his 38th career win in IndyCar, and his first win in 13 races back at the Harvest GP at the Indy road course last year. There was also some other incidents that happened before the finish. Simon Pagenaud went off track after having, I think, contact with some driver. Joseph Newgarden and Takuma Sato, they made contact in turn number 1. There was a lot of action mid-pack, but again, luckily for Will Power, it all happened behind him. So let's take a look at the results. They are to the left of your screen. Will Power wins. Grosjean with his 2nd podium. His first podium came here at the Indy road course back in May, finishes in 2nd. Colton Herta in 3rd. Alexander Rossi and Pato O'Ward rounds up the top 5, 4th and 5th. 6th is Jack Harvey, 7th Graham Rahal, 8th is Newgarden, 9th is Ericsson, and Takuma Sato rounds out the top 10. Then you got 11th Connor Daly, 12th place Christian Lundgaard, but yes, he finished 12th, but he had a really good weekend. I mean, he qualified, I think, 4th for the race. Overall, he just had a very clean race, which is something that he needed to do. Go out there and have a clean race. Don't step on anybody's toes. Don't, try and make anyone mad. Just go out there and have a clean race, and he did just that. A nice run for him. 13th, Felix Rosenqvist. 14th, Jones. Sebastian Bourdais, Simon Pagenaud. Scott Dixon in 17th place. Just a very off day, not what he needed if he wanted to contend for the championship this year. Ryan Hunter Ray in 18th. Jimmy Johnson in 19th. I think this is his first top 20 finish, if I'm not mistaken. But Johnson also had a really good weekend, had a really strong qualifying run, the best, I think, this season. So had a really nice weekend for the 48 team. And Max Chilton in 20th, Castro Neves 21st, Hinchcliffe 22nd, McLaughlin 23rd, and then VeeKay, Cody Ware, Dalton Kellett, Alex Palou, and RC Anderson round out the 28 car field. Now let's take a look at the standings, the top 10 standings with just 4 races to go. Palou's lead is shrunk, now down to just 21 points ahead of Pato O'Ward. Scott Dixon minus 34, Newgarden minus 55, Marcus Ericsson minus 62, and then from Rahal, Herta, Pagenaud, Power, and VeeKay. Those drivers, I believe there still is a possibility for maybe Rahal or Herta, but it's going to be very difficult with just 4 races to go in the season. Now on to the Xfinity Series, which took place right after the IndyCar Series. AJ Allmendinger started on pole, but very odd from Allmendinger. first turn, first lap in turn number 1, he missed it. Goes off track. That allows his teammate Justin Haley to take the lead with ease. Then on the infield straightaway, so many drivers went wide and hit. There's an orange turtle off of the curb right before the long straightaway off of turns 5 and 6. There's a curb, orange turtle curb there. So many drivers went out wide, ran over the turtle, and were jumping up in the air. They're doing like the Dukes of Hazzard. They were just flying into the air, landing back down hard. A lot of drivers had a lot of damage to their machines. You had Harrison Burton with damage, Brandon Jones, Kevin Harvick, and more were involved. They're either going up in the air or spun, running into each other, trying to avoid the flying cars. And then AJ Allmendinger missed the corner again in turn number 12, but that wasn't what brought out the caution. What brought out the caution was Preston Pardis in the 90 car who stopped in the middle of the racetrack. That's what brought out the caution, but not the other drivers that were involved. They managed to keep going. The restart after that was a lot cleaner, but Haley had company, and that was Austin Cindric, one of the best drivers in Xfinity Series on road courses and the defending champion. His car looked more stable. If you saw the battle between him and Justin Haley, his car just looked overall more stable than Justin did, and it was just a matter of time before Cindric would get by Haley, and he did just that heading to turn number 1. Textbook move. Cindric gets underneath Haley, takes the lead, but then 2 incidents take place. Number 1, Will Rogers, he spins in turn number 7 but keeps it going. But then Ryan Sieg, who spun earlier in the stage, his left rear tire went flat and left debris scattered all over the front straightaway at the start finish line, which brought out the second caution with 6 laps to go. Cindric would get out first on pit road, but he would restart 7th. 6 other drivers stayed out on the racetrack for stage points, including Riley Herbst and Sage Karam, the IndyCar driver. Yes, those two started out the race, or restarted the race with 2 laps to go. But Justin Haley had an unbelievable restart. He started 8th on what would be the inside lane, and going into turn number 1, made a 3-wide move, past 3 or 4 cars at once, entering turn 1, and by the time they left turn 5 for the infield straightaway, he was up to 3rd place. He then passed Sage Karam for 2nd place on the final lap, and then managed to charge down Riley Herbst in turn 12 to then take the lead and win the stage. So Justin Haley won, Riley Herbst in 2nd, 3rd was Jeb Byrne, 4th Austin Cindric, 5th Sage Karam, and then Gregson, Clemens, Tommy Joe Martins, Chase Elliott, and Ty Gibbs round out the top 10. Chase Elliott, at 9 a.m. in the morning, was not planning on racing here in the Xfinity Series, but Michael Annett was supposed to drive the 1 car. Unfortunately, he had that, I think, surgery on his right leg, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was his right leg. Thought he could compete today, but couldn't. So at the last second, JRM called Chase Elliott, got a seat fitted and everything like that, just minutes before the race began. And for how little time Chase had to prepare, he did pretty good. Was in the top 10, maybe top 6, virtually the entire race. And like I said, started out good, 9th place in stage number 1. Stage 2, then Cindric and Haley, the front row. Gregson took it 3 wide on the 2 drivers entering turn number 1, would get 2nd. Then in turn number 5, Ty Gibbs just went flying out into the grass after he made contact with his teammate Daniel Hemrick. Chris Wright, another driver, decided to go Dukes of Hazzard mode, went up in the air after hitting the turn 6 curb. And then Chase Elliott got spun after getting tapped from the back by his teammate Sam Meyer in turn number 7. It always seems a lot of these accidents or a lot of the chaos takes place, whether it's IndyCar or NASCAR, they always seem to take place at the beginning of the race, especially those very critical corners in turn 1 and turns 5 and 6. Then we saw smoke coming out from the left front of Daniel Hemrick and Jeremy Clements' car after the contact from the skirmish that happened back there when we restarted the race. Hemrick, so severe that he had to pit with 15 laps to go. But then, luckily for him, a caution would come out. With 12 to go, Austin Hill, don't know what happened with him, but he just stopped in the middle of the racetrack off the final corner to bring out the caution. So we restart with 10 laps to go. AJ Allmendinger, he's now back in the mix of this thing and is now the race leader with Justin Haley, his teammate, Gregson 3rd, Cindric, and Sam Meyer, the top 5. Multiple drivers then decided to pit, like Cindric, Meyer, Snyder, and Elliott, or more, with 3 laps to go to set themselves up for the final stage. But then seconds later, the caution would come out. 2 laps to go. Will Rogers, fire comes out of his machine, pulls it off to the side, climbs out of the car. He is okay, but he does bring out the caution. And unfortunately, Justin Allgaier, who was running inside the top 10 at the time, it was just a matter of inches from him being on the good side of this deal. But when the caution came out, he was just inches before the commitment line. And when you come onto pit road, when the caution comes out, you get trapped. I think is you get trapped a lap down or you get sent to the back, one of the two things, but he got the bad end of the deal. So very unlucky for him. Again, it was just a matter of inches from him and his team looking very smart coming out of this pit strategy, but again, he ends up getting the bad deal of things. Colleague racing drivers AJ Allmendinger and Justin Haley would finish 1 and 2. Third is Gregson. Fourth is Ty Gibbs. Fifth, Andy Lally. Lally also had a surprising, really good run for him and BJ McLeod Motorsports. Sixth, Jeb Byrne. Seventh, Daniel Hemrick. Eighth, Jeremy Clements. And then Riley Herbst and Josh Williams. They round out the top 10. So we restarted stage 3 with Ty Gibbs out in front, but didn't take long for him to lose the lead. Next time by, Austin Cindric. Again, in the braking zone in turn number 1 underneath Gibbs. Takes the lead right back. There was one other moment in turn number 5 with teammates Chase Elliott and Sam Meyer. Remember earlier in the race, Meyer dumped, well not really dumped, but got on the back end of Elliott, spun him around. I don't know if you could say it was payback, but there was an incident between the two. Chase Elliott and Sam Meyer made contact in turns 5 and 6. Meyer then goes out into the grass, then turns left to avoid the orange turtle that was sitting in the middle of the curb and the grass, then ends up spinning, smacks into the tire barriers pretty hard, forces him to pull off the racetrack, climb out of the car, and his day was done. But because he pulled the car off track, no caution was flown. And that was really it that happened. It was smooth sailing from there on out. Austin Cindric with ease goes on to win at the Indianapolis road course for his 5th win of the season, his 13th Xfinity Series win, and his 5th Xfinity road course win, which puts him tied for most all time, I believe, with Marcos Ambrose, and I think AJ Allmendinger also has 5. But yeah, quite an impressive stat for Austin Cindric, considering the fact that his family is very connected with Indianapolis Motor Speedway. His father, Tim Cindric, the strategist or team strategist at Team Penske. He has won a lot of races at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the Indy 500. So for Austin to win here at this racetrack is very special for him. Here's a look at the unofficial results. So Cindric wins, Allmendinger in 2nd, his teammate Justin Haley in 3rd. 4th is Chase Elliott, and Noah Gragson rounds up the top 5. I'll tell you what, for little experience and little notice, I think Chase Elliott did pretty good, scoring a 4th place finish. 6th, Austin Dillon. 7th, Maya Snyder. 8th, Riley Herbst. Harrison Byrne in 9th. And Andy Lally and BJ McLeod Motorsports, top 10 finish for him. Excellent job for that 78 team. 11th is Justin Allgaier. Daniel Hemrick in 12th. Alex LeBay 13th. And then Jeremy Clements 14th. Josh Williams 15th. And then Kyle Weatherman, Landon Castle, James Davison, Ty Gibbs, and Jade Buford. They rounded out the top 20. Ty Gibbs, he pitted with, I think, 5 or 6 laps to go. I don't know why. Maybe he ran out of fuel. I don't know why. But I believe he was running inside the top 10. But he pitted with around 5 or 6 laps to go. Also, Jeb Byrne, he pitted with, I think, 2 or 3 to go. He ended up finishing 23rd. Probably ran out of fuel. Don't know why. Don't know if they miscalculated the how long they were going to make it to the end. But yeah, not good finishes for those drivers. Tommy Joe Martins, Justin Haley, or JJ Yaley, 21st, 22nd. And then Spencer Pumpley, 24th. Balicki, 25th. Sage Kim, 26th. Sam Meyer with his 27th. And from here on back, the rest of the drivers, they were involved in that lap 1 crash. Except for Will Rogers, who had that fire issue, but Austin Hill, Chris Wright, Brett Moffitt, Ryan Seed, Kevin Harvick, Brandon Brown, Preston Pardis, and Brandon Jones, they all were part of that lap 1 or lap 2 crashes over there. Not really much happened. Yeah, there were some exciting moments, but in terms of the overall race, I kind of enjoyed the IndyCar race a lot more than the Xfinity race, maybe because it was shorter, I don't know why, but I enjoyed the IndyCar race a lot more than Xfinity. But so yeah, I'm excited for the Cup race tomorrow. Got a lot of storylines to look out for with Chase Elliott or Kyle Larson or maybe someone else I can maybe lock the way into the playoffs. Should be interesting to see what takes place. And yeah, we have qualifying at, I think, at 9:30. So yeah, it's going to be a very early morning at Indianapolis. And then we got the race at 1 o'clock, which is rare for NASCAR because every time we start the race at maybe 3 or 4. So to start the race at 1 is pretty rare. But yeah, thank you all so much for watching this special doubleheader episode of MDK Racing Victory Stop. What are your thoughts on the races? Did you like it? Did you not? But until next time, my name is Jet from MDK. Congratulations to our winners, Will Power and Austin Cindric. Your winners at Indianapolis. We'll see you tomorrow.